The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello everyone. This is Dennis Kay with Belize Islands Real Estate coming to you live today. It is Wednesday, January 9th, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I'd like to welcome all of you to today's webinar. We're going to have a great time today talking about the Belize Retirement Program. You know, many of you are also looking at retiring in Belize, perhaps purchasing investment property or vacation property, certainly a retirement home in Belize. And today with me, I'm going to introduce to you in just a few minutes a very special guest who knows all the ins and outs of this program, and to see if it's for you and how you can take advantage of it, or if you should be looking at other options when it comes to your immigration status in Belize. So it is 1 o'clock on the dot. What I'd like to do is just give everyone a minute or two to settle in. So first of all, let's get some technical things out of the way. If you can hear my voice okay, and you can see my opening slide, then please type in yes in either the chat box or the question box. Make sure that everything is coming through okay and there's no major delays. All right, good. Thanks, Tracy. We appreciate that. Excellent. BJ, good to have you on board today. Lisa, Terry. All right. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate that. And what I'd like you to do is to get together something to take notes with, perhaps paper, pencil, maybe on your phone or on your computer. So as we go through this information, you can jot down points that you want to remember, or you can jot down questions that you have for us. So everyone is free to ask questions during the entire webinar. You can type those into the question box. Now, sometimes I will pause the presentation and answer your question directly. Other times we'll ask you to wait to the end because that question may come up during the presentation naturally, or we might save it to the very end during our live Q&A so that we can answer it in more depth and more detail. All right, very good. So what I want to do is just to give everybody one more minute to log on, I want to launch a quick poll is regarding why you are attending this webinar today. This information helps us to know how to tailor our information and also really how best to help you after the program, what additional information we can get to you, how we can follow up the best. So please just check one of the boxes as far as why you're attending the webinar. Are you just curious about Belize and its retirement program and want to learn more? Or are you interested in looking at owning vacation or retirement property? Or perhaps you're not looking at buying any real estate at all. You're just interested in retiring in Belize. Or maybe you don't want to retire, maybe you're young or just don't have that desire, that you're interested in buying Belize real estate as an investment. So please just go ahead and check one of those boxes. I'll let the poll go for about another 15, 20 seconds to give everybody a chance to vote. And then I'll actually share with you these results so you can see who your fellow attendees are and who your company is today. So it looks like everyone is still voting. Wow, we have 90% voted. All right, we will close this out and we will share the results. So very good. 35% of you are just curious and looking to learn more. 12% want to own vacation property. 35% would like to retire in Belize, and 18% would like to invest. So we have a good mix of people today. Again, thank you very much for attending. I promise this will be well worth your time. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Miss Josie Dawson. Now, Josie has been helping people to qualify for Belize Retirement Program for several years now. She's worked with several investors on Ambergris Caye, several retirees, vacation homeowners, in securing their way to immigrate to the country of Belize. Before I hand it over to her, just let me mention this, is that I think as Americans, we have this idea that we can pretty much pack up and move to any country in the world. And that's not really true. I've visited 30 countries around the world. I've lived in several, and several countries have very strict immigration policies, even for Americans. We have what is called the magic or the golden passport. We think we can just show up in another country, put down some roots and live there. Well, do a little research on countries around the world, and that's not really the case. Sometimes you can buy your retirement or your residency in another country. Sometimes you have to jump through major hoops or be extremely wealthy to be granted permanent residence in another country. However, Belize makes it very simple to immigrate, and they offer several different ways of doing that: getting a work permit, getting residency, even getting citizenship. But the one we're going to focus on today is called the QRP, or the Qualified Retired Persons Program. This is actually a program that is offered by the Belize government as an incentive to lure retirees from around the world into the country of Belize, and it's fairly easy to qualify. And there are some tips and tricks, though. So not everyone gets in the program. There are some things that you definitely need to know. There are some pros and cons, and some of the paperwork can be a bit confusing. In fact, if you've been researching this on your own on the internet, then you probably realize that there's a lot of conflicting information out there, especially at websites that are updated on a regular basis. And so this information as of January 9th, 2019 is the latest and greatest, and all of it is deemed to be true and 100% factual. If we get a minor detail wrong, we'll certainly correct ourselves, but Josie here is a professional at what she does. And now I want to turn it over. So Josie, very happy to have you on the live broadcast today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on, Dennis. And I'm excited to share with everybody that's signed up and everybody that's attending today.
Excellent. Very good. Well, perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. A lot of my clients are familiar with the QRP program in theory, but they don't really know you. So perhaps you can just give us a little bit of your own history and what makes you the specialist when it comes to this program.
Absolutely. Thanks. Again, guys, thanks for joining us today. My name, as Dennis had mentioned, is Josie Dawson. I was born and raised in the country of Belize. I grew up on the island of San Pedro, both on the northern part of the country and, the northern part of the island and the center of the island. I now live in the western part, the mainland of Belize, but the QRP program, my background in it started on San Pedro, on Ambergris Key, working with a real estate office. We started offering the program, the service to clients that we had. The program within BTB was relatively new, so there wasn't a lot of information out there. People didn't understand how to go about applying and qualifying for the program. So we assisted our clients in acquiring the status, and we welcomed a lot of members to BTB. Because of this, I was officially invited by BTB to join their temporary QRP committee. This offered me a great advantage, so because I was able to learn the ins and outs of their program, the goal behind why BTB created the QRP, why the government created these incentives. We were a part of the committee that tweaked the benefits in how to expose it, how to make it user friendly, how to make it as appealing as possible to any foreigners that wanted to make Belize their home.
Excellent. So let me just interject one thing here. So BTB stands for Belize Tourism Board, correct? All right, very good.
That is right.
And then you were mentioning that the reason that this program was created is because the government of Belize is in general very pro foreign investment. For example, those of you who've been following me for a while know that when it comes to real estate, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to safety and security of real estate investments, the government takes a very strong stand for and in promoting foreign investment. And then this is another way that the Belize government is attracting foreign investment, is by attracting qualified retired persons through this QRP program.
Absolutely right. The government welcomes foreign investment, and that was one of the reasons they created the QRP, was to encourage and to promote the flow of foreign capital into the country. So it's part hand in hand with retirement and for offshore banking, international banking in the country. So these are the reasons, Belize created this additional incentive to bring or drive in capitals into the country.
All right, excellent. And so some of the questions that people have been having is who qualifies, what they should know. Some have heard that they need a bank account when setting this up, and is it necessary that they invest in property or is it not? So can you walk us through now some of the things? For example, I have here in my notes that this program has been going on since 1988.
Absolutely right.
And what are some of the benefits of someone getting in on this program?
Okay, so first and foremost, let's understand what QRP is. It is a qualified retirement person or a qualified retirement program. It stands for the same. BTB the government uses both terminology. The act itself is called the Retired Person Incentive Act. And as Dennis mentioned, it was created in 1998, and again, to promote foreign investments into the country. And to do that, they created exemptions from certain taxes and duties and other incentives to attract those retirees. Now, the departments that are included in this to that are play a part within the QRP. The first one, like BTB. So this is the Belize Tourism Board, as we mentioned earlier. They're the ones that process the application. We have the National Security. They're the ones that take care of the background checks. Then we have the Immigration Department. Now, understanding the QRP. Now, it is a special retirement program that is created especially retirees who wish to live in the country and who can prove that they have a permanent and consistent income from an investment, from any form of retirement benefits. So once an applicant is approved, the status that you hold is QRP status. So you're not a resident of Belize. You are a subcategory of a resident. So in other terms, you are a non-resident. Now, this can be very confusing to many because, some would believe that they are a resident, but technically you are not. You are considered a permanent tourist in Belize or a non-resident. Now, we'll see further along the benefit of this status and how this works hand in hand with your international banking for ICBs and for LLCs and so forth, how this status works hand in hand. In essence,
yeah, no, this is very interesting because a lot of people may not understand what that means. You're not a resident, but you're applying for residency in a sense. So as an example, I have what is called a permanent resident card, which allows me to live and work in Belize. I can come and go as I please. My wife is grandfathered under that with me. So we are not citizens. We don't have our passports yet. We could have applied for them. We just chose not to. But we have a permanent residency card. So, but what you're explaining is QRP allows you to live there permanently, but almost just like a permanent tourist.
Absolutely. So, it's the same privilege. You still have the essence. The program still grants you freedom of mobility, just like a permanent resident, just like yourself and Stephanie would be able. So you can freely come into the country. You can reside in the country with your spouse and your dependents. So you have that same right as a resident, but you're technically not. So you won't have the benefits of like voting like yourself would be able to, but you're not under any obligation as a member or a resident, so you're not liable to certain taxes and so forth. So there is you have the benefit of a resident, but not any of the obligations of a resident.
Ah, very interesting. That's excellent, and that's something that many of my clients are looking forward to because some countries that you move to, for example, Paris, where we're at temporarily right now, the fact that we're a resident means we pay French taxes. So with Belize, several of my clients moving down have a certain amount of wealth, various means, and to know that under this program that wealth isn't taxed in Belize, that's pretty significant.
And we'll definitely see that when we come to the portion of incentive. Again, remember, guys, that Belize made it. So this is very attractive in a sense that you're not taxed for your capital gains, inheritance tax, and so forth, or taxes on your income.
Excellent.
Now, I just wanted to quickly go over just the BTB, the roles that they play in the QRP. They're the ones that administer the QRP. They are the first step, the first door that you would enter in trying to get into this program. They are divided, so there's licensing officers for different regions of the country. But one thing you need to keep in mind, BTB, or the Belize Tourism Board, also branch or take care of hotel licensing, tour guide licensing. So it's a small office with a number of employees that have multiple roles. So the same person that may be approving your application is the same person probably doing hotel licensing and tour guide licensing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead. So first thing first, why Belize? So we know that different countries offer similar programs. QRP, we know it's not a new concept. Countries like Costa Rica, Nicaragua has similar programs. The difference in ours is that we took the best of all these locations and brought it together, and we combined that with other stuff like your international banking and so forth. So we just combined everything to make a beautiful little package. Now I know everybody's used to hearing location, location, location. I'm sure you said that, Dennis, yourself
Absolutely. That's why we chose Belize in 2003.
Absolutely. I mean, I use this when I'm picking out a restaurant to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
The location matters. So how does Belize reflect this perfectly? Now, I'm sure everybody has heard within the travel circles, Belize is known as Mother's Nature best kept secret. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So Belize is beautiful by nature. We are an independent country. Now, some of the benefits of retiring in the country. Retiring in Belize is relatively inexpensive. Regardless of where you are retiring, if you're choosing San Pedro or the mainland Belize, compared to other Caribbean countries, we are very inexpensive. So your money, your retirement goes much further. It affords you the lifestyle that you would love to live. Belize is English speaking country. It is our official language. We do have many others. Spanish is widely spoken, but English is our language. The nation itself is very peaceful. I may be biased, because I'm a citizen. I think we're all friendly. Might be a little bit biased on that one, but I think the country itself welcomes foreigners. It is already a melting pot of cultures. So any addition to the country is not, strange. We definitely welcome foreigners. Because of our unique location, Belize, not everybody knows where we are sometimes. It's bordered, by Mexico to the north. We have Guatemala to our south and west, and we have the Caribbean Sea. It just makes the perfect location for our, subtropical climate year round. We are pretty much 2 hours away from the US and Canada, from any of the major hubs, like Miami, Dallas, Houston's. International flights, direct flights are becoming more and more common. Continental, American, Delta, they're just adding more and more flights to the country. And we see that could just continue to grow as Belize is exposed. Our political system is democratic and is very stable, unlike, our neighboring countries. The laws in Belize is very similar to what you're used to home. One of the great things about it too is that our local currency is Belize dollar, which is tied to the American dollar, 2 to 1. The only place that it might be different is when you're doing banking, wiring funds down or going into the bank. The exchange is at 1.98. But going out to eat, day-to-day life, the currency is 2 to 1. So one of the great benefits, though, is the easy access and affordability to properties in the Caribbean. Trying to get a piece of property in the Caymans right now or anywhere else, to get that Caribbean lifestyle might not be something that somebody can afford. But Belize still afford people to get in and have that dream of owning a Caribbean home. The country itself has a great asset protection in place. These combination makes Belize great and attractive environment for global investors, for foreign investors. So let's look at some of the countries that applies, that would qualify to enter the QRP program. So if you just click one more time.
Let's see. Yep. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
How about that? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did. So in essence, every country pretty much qualifies, anywhere but Belize. So, from the US, Canada, anywhere in the world can qualify for the QRP program. Now, so what we want to know now, so if the country applies, who can qualify? Who qualifies for the program? Ooh, we jumped a little bit ahead there.
It's my first time with this. Forgive me.
It's okay.
All right. So the question just came up from RJ. What age do you need to be to qualify? So this is a perfect spot to answer that.
Absolutely. So who qualifies? You must be 45 or older. So that's the get-go. So you don't have to be way in the 60s, 70s. You can start off right at 45.
Now, is that
anywhere older than that?
Both parties or just one?
So just one person can qualify. So under the QRP, one person can qualify, and your spouse, your children can become dependent, be added as dependent into the program. So just one person needs to qualify to join the program and to become a QRP member. Another qualification, what you would need to qualify would be a income of a minimum of $2,000 US dollars a month, or $24,000 a year. And this is, funds coming through a pension, annuity, or any other form of retirement benefits that's generated outside of Belize.
Okay, so I have some questions coming in on this. Let me just take a minute. So 45 years is the minimum age to qualify. And if you can show that you have 2,000 US dollars a month coming in through some sort of investment, what if it's, or 24,000 a year? So what if it's just like I have a big savings account, and let's say I have $500,000 in savings, and I show my bank a statement. Does that qualify, or do I have to convert that into something that puts 24,000 a year into my account?
So this is where I love the way BTB or Belize processes the QRP program. It is not a cool way of processing it. It's not mechanical. It's not black and white. Every case is done every application is done case by case. So we know everybody is not cookie cutter. Everybody doesn't have the same retirement plans and so forth. The act itself has added amendments to it. One of the most recent one was adding financial funds that can be proven to be a guaranteed continuous source of funds. So now there's other documentation you would need to provide, but if that was your case, I can definitely walk you through that. What was amended just last year in December was now to include your IRA. Now, before you weren't able to do that, but now you can. All we have to do is to prove to the Belize government or BTB that you have a guaranteed continuous source of funds that's going to support you for your lifetime in Belize.
Okay, that sounds good.
Now,
and with a lot of people looking at retirement, 45 is a pretty young age, but I know a lot of 45-year-olds who have done very well in businesses for themselves, and they have that sort of income set up. It doesn't have to. Now, it's true that they don't actually have to be retired. They just have to show this type of income.
That is absolutely right. You don't have to be retired. You just have to have that source of funds coming in. You can still work outside of Belize. Anything outside generated your income can continue. So you don't have to be retired to enter the program at all.
Okay, good. That's significant. Thank you for clarifying that.
It really is. There's something like, I would like to point out just a quick little example of the benefit of doing having BTB doing the application or processing application case by case. I've had a client in the past that didn't exactly meet the minimum requirement. So his Social Security benefit was just under the 2,000 requirements. So what did we do? So what we did was we took his wife's Social Security, his Social Security, and combined them together. Now, they're not both applying for the QRP. It's still just one person applying for the QRP. The wife is still applying as a dependent, but we're using both source of income to qualify into the program. And that was accepted. Yes.
Well,
again, remember, we're not.
For me, it'd be the other way around because all of my money is my wife's money anyway. So.
Yeah. Another example I would really like to point out is.
Oop, did you go off, Josie? Your volume broke up a bit there. All right. So if okay, there you go. Yep. Continue. I can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to point out just another different case is I had another client that came to me and said, I don't have annuity, I don't have a pension, but I do have my investment portfolio. Can I still apply? So just like you had mentioned before, what if they don't have a retirement program that they're in? We did take the portfolio and we took it to BTB. We presented it and it was accepted. So this brings me into what should we know? What information should we know? We have to be conscious though that BTB is not an institution or a department that holds accountant or investment advisors. These are regular workers that are processing applications. So though you may understand and be able to read a investment portfolio into your stocks and bonds, BTB receiving that form or documentation might be completely lost on them or a little bit harder to interpret.
Right. Well, just to go back, giving an example of that, going back to your slide about who qualifies. So anybody in the world can get in on this program, no matter what country they're from. But the BTB, they can't be up on every single investment strategy and scheme offered by 200 plus countries around the world. So it makes sense that you just need to keep it very simple and direct for them. It just makes sense.
Absolutely. So what else should we definitely know? First thing, I think everyone that's considering this should figure out what type of lifestyle they're looking for. What are their goals? This is the first thing I ask my clients. What is the goal moving to Belize? Is this something, is this a location that you want to retire in and just live out your life, whether it is on a permanent basis or whether they just want to be here a part of the year? Is this a location that they want to invest in alone? Is this an area that they want to come down? Was it their dream to leave the US, leave Canada, come to the Caribbean, open a dive shop, open a little sailing school, and just, live the life out on the water? So once we figure that out, figure your goal out, we can then look at your options. Now, Belize, like Dennis had mentioned earlier, offers several options to get into becoming a resident in the country. We definitely welcome. The first and the easiest is a tourist visa, meaning you reach the country, you receive a stamp on your passport, you are a tourist in the country for 30 days. After 30 days, you go back to the immigration office and you can stamp your passport for another 30 days. I just want to quickly check. Can you still hear me, Dennis?
Yep. All good.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Just heard a little disturbance there.
Nope.
So you're in the country as a tourist and you've decided, well, I would like to actually work here. So the next step would be to acquire a work permit. So now you're still a tourist in the country, but now you're allowed to work. Now, the next step, as Dennis mentioned, is a permanent residency. Now, a quick note, this is not citizenship. This just allows you to live and work in the country without the need to renew your visa every 30 days. Now, you can qualify for permanent residency after a year. After 5 years, if you wished, you can become a citizen. The fastest and easiest way to get into the country is, of course, the newest way, the QRP program, which we'll be discussing today.
Okay, excellent.
One of the last,
let me just add one more thing, because I had a question come in by Natasha. Natasha said, so with the QRP, does that mean she has to live in Belize, like permanent, 12 months a year or 6 months a year? Does she have to live there when she gets the QRP program?
Absolutely not. And that's one of the incentives in the program. The minimum is 30 days. Okay. To maintain your status, you just have to be in the country 30 days within the year.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I know you're going to go through some more incentives, but perhaps just under the different options. So if my clients are looking at saying, oh, what is the best immigration option for me? The one of the benefits of the QRP is once they get that, they can come and go into the country as they please without having to worry about overstaying a 30-day stamp or getting a work permit or residency, which takes living in the country for a year. So if they qualify for the QRP, number one benefit is they can come and go as they please.
Absolutely. So you get you have the benefit of just as a resident. So you have the freedom of mobility. You could come in and out of the country. You can stay and live for as long as you'd like. You could live here permanently, or like we mentioned earlier, you can just be here for a minimum of 30 days. Okay, good. Now the next question that came in is regard what are the incentives? In other words, what's the real benefit of the QRP program as far as people bringing stuff down or import tax and all that kind of good stuff? So the incentive itself, like the biggest one is once you're a member of the QRP, you can bring your personal effects into the country 100% duty free. Wow. Now, yes. So why is that? Why is that for people that don't know Belize? Why is that significant? Everything is brought into the country, so it's a small area. So the importation duty into the country can be very high. So this incentive to bring in all your personal effects duty free is very huge. So you're moving your entire life, you're moving your home into this country, and moving, as we know, is not cheap. It definitely, the cost sums up very, very, very fast. Belize has made it very easy to make that transition to making Belize your home as easy as possible with the least amount of burden. Now, another incentive is the exemption from paying tax in Belize or on any income or investments, that you occur from any source outside of Belize. So you can therefore live in the country of Belize 100% tax free. Excellent. Now, like I mentioned earlier, that other countries have similar programs, QRP programs. This incentive didn't qualify. Being a QRP status in those countries, you're still subjected to tax and income tax. In Belize, all that tax that you gain outside of the country is tax free. So it's a very big incentive. Yeah, no, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. But so we had some questions come in on this. I'll give my own example. When we lived on the mainland, we brought down a vehicle, had it shipped out of Miami through Hyde Shipping, arrived in Belize City, we picked it up. And at that time, the import tax on a vehicle was 50%. So as an example, for any of my clients moving down to the mainland, if they bring in a $20,000 U.S. vehicle and they are not part of the QRP program, the tax on that is going to be $10,000 U.S., 50% of the value. The same thing goes for household goods. If you're bringing down, a household full of furniture and things like that, I think the tax rate, am I right? It's like around 30 to 35% of the value. That's about right. Yeah. So as an example, if you have $20,000 worth of furniture shipped down and household goods, and you're not part of the QRP program,
you're probably going to pay somewhere around $7,000 or more in taxes on that. So you can see if you do qualify for the QRP program and you are bringing things down, the tax saving is significant. So I had a couple questions here. One is from Eric. Is there a limit in what you can bring into the country duty free?
Yes, there is a limit in the sense that your personal effect is allowed to come in. So you can't bring in items for repairs or for building or tools of trade. So you can't bring in items like maybe light fixtures or tiles and stuff like that will not qualify under the program. But there is a limit on the total expense, but I mean the limit is somewhere. It's all case by case. They can exceed from 15,000 or more.
So if I'm furnishing $1 million home with furniture from Tommy Bahamas or whatever, they're going to look at that differently than if I'm buying a 1-bedroom 1-bath condo and moving a couple things down.
You don't have a limit. So you have an entire year to bring in your house personal effects. So you have an entire year you can bring multiple containers in as long as it falls within what they considered personal effects. Okay. So as long as it's not like you might not be able to bring in a treadmill per se or your gym set, but you can definitely bring in your couch, furnitures, appliances, and so forth. And if that is in multiple containers, then that is absolutely fine. You can definitely do that. You have to go through the custom procedure each time, but you can. Good note to know that the personal effect is separated from your vehicle that you are allowed to bring in under the QRP duty free. So they don't combine it. Like you mentioned, if you brought down a car worth $15,000 to $20,000, they don't add that together. It's completely separated. So you can bring in your household items, and then on top of that, you can bring in a approved means of transportation duty free. You can bring in a light aircraft, and you can bring in a boat. Now, yes.
Wow. Now,
people are a little bit confused on this. Can I have only one? No, you can have all three if you wanted to. So you can have one approved means of transportation. On some pages, that would definitely be a golf cart. On the mainland, you can have a car. That's with addition. You can also have a aircraft. Maybe like a Cessna 172 or something like that. You'd have to have a pilot's license. You'd have to work through civil aviation to get it approved. But that's for that time. And you can bring a boat. The only guidelines is that these are for your personal use only, for the members under the QRP and their dependents. They're not to be used for business. You can't have a boat and start taking out clients to go as a tour operating service.
Yeah,
or something
because
like
that comes under commercial business. I mean, the QRP is qualified retired persons. They want to give the person the benefit and not, basically pay for their upstarting of a company through this program. That makes sense.
Exactly. So there is a lot of incentives in it designed for retirees. You don't have to be retired, but it is designed for retirees. So there are some guidelines. You're not allowed to seek employment in Belize. Now that makes sense. If you're under the status of a retired person. Mm-hmm. However, as we mentioned before, the government welcomes foreign investors. So you might not be able to seek employment, means to be paid by a Belize business, but you can still invest in the country, and it's encouraged for you to invest in the country. You can also volunteer. We have Saga on the island. There's many volunteer organizations throughout the country that you are welcome to join. Because it is a QRP program, there is a requirement for you to renew your status every year. So that means you'd have to submit your application for renewal. Your ID will be renewed every year. So you'd have to submit a bank statement showing that you are compliant with the financial requirements of 2,000 monthly, and then you go and you reapply for the program again.
Is that simple, or is that complicated? How does that work?
Very simple.
Okay.
Very, very simple. So the amount of check and the length of it is not the same. It's done within a month. Your ID is then again issued. A new card with a new expiration date is given.
Okay, gotcha. So let me just do a small recap here. I had some questions come in. So number one is, if you qualify for the QRP program, you are not allowed to work in Belize. So for example, you can't go get a job at the front desk at a hotel or a bartender or anything like that. But if you make money outside of the country, for example, several of my clients have online businesses. That's not considered working in Belize. And that's money you're earning outside of the country.
Money earned outside of the country, absolutely. So you can still continue doing business outside of the country, your day-to-day, your business back home. You can continue that working from Belize.
Okay.
It doesn't affect that whatsoever. Okay. As long as you're not gainfully employed within the country.
Okay. And number two, though, that person could own a business in Belize that generates profits.
Absolutely. They can definitely still invest and own a business. They can create a LLC and put that under that, and as long as they're not in the day-to-day transaction operation of the business itself.
So I could own a beach bar. I just can't work there. Would that be correct?
You can't work there. Absolutely. Okay. You can't work there, but you can invest in the country.
Gotcha.
There's ways that you would need, steps that you need to take, but yes, you definitely can.
Okay. So let's go on to this, to the next thing about banking. How is a bank account in Belize tied in with the QRP program, or are they tied in?
So yes. So the banking in Belize, so the first step is that you would have to you'd have to have a local bank account. As long as it's a Belizean financial institution, it will apply for the requirements of the $2,000 a year. The typical account that you would open is a non-resident bank account. I know we keep saying this non-resident. It'll make more sense as we get along. But the bank account that you would typically open is a non-resident bank account. But the upside is that you are still allowed to maintain an international bank account. Because of that status, you can keep an international bank account in the country of Belize.
Okay.
Now, investment. Yeah. You have any questions on that one? Sorry.
That's good. No. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Investment in Belize, you can purchase a property, you can have passive investments, you can create an LLC for those investments, separated as a different entity from your QRP status. So all that plays into your banking. Now, when it comes to your ICB, or if you're interested, if you had any ICB or an LLC, the government of Belize has the laws that they have in place, just makes it an ideal area to create your ICBs, and we'll see why. We know that ICB is mainly used for tax protection or asset protection, for tax planning, for exemption from corporate tax, basically for a vehicle for international financial transactions, right?
Correct.
But one of the benefits is the strong financial privacy set in place by the Belize government. Now, there's two very exciting acts that I wanted to point out within the QRP and the LLC. If we jump to the following slide, Dennis.
Which one?
The following one.
Okay. Right here?
Yes. So this is where the non-resident will kind of make a little bit more, shine a little bit more light on it. Back one more up. Yeah. The Retired Person Incentive Act. Now, Chapter 62 and Section 5 reads, qualified retired persons shall be deemed a non-resident for the purpose of offshore banking, the Exchange Control Regulation for International Business Companies, ICB, the Trust Act, and so forth. So any other act which relates or may hereafter relates to international financial services directly or indirectly. So plain and simple that the QRP and international banking or financing services work hand in hand. A lot of people are confused in thinking that if I have one, I can't have the other, or I have to find a loophole to benefit from international banking or holding an ICB. When in fact it was created together to work and for you to benefit from both. Now, as I mentioned, the privacy of an ICB is one of the most one of the biggest attractions to Belize itself in the country. Belize took examples from, different ICBs within the Caribbean, from Delaware, and they combined it together. So if we actually look at one snippet in the amendment that they added to the to a feature to the LLC Act, we kind of see that. Could you jump to the following slide? Yes, thank you. So Section 7 reads, every creditor shall, before bringing an action or proceeding against any limited liability company property governed by this act, shall first deposit with the Supreme Court registry an amount equal to half of the amount claimed or $50,000, whichever is greater, for securing the payment of all costs as may become payable by the creditor. What does this mean? Simply put, if somebody wanted to come after you for your LLC, let's say they came after you for $10,000 or $15,000. Now, they would have to put up front $50,000 before the Supreme Court even looks at their case. What if it was $2 million? Then they would have to put up $1 million. So it's definitely something, it definitely puts a halt, a pause on anybody coming and attacking any LLC or ICB within the country of Belize.
Excellent. Yeah. So just I've highlighted this fact in other webinars that the United States is the most litigious country in the world, and the amount the risk that you have in the U.S. of losing your wealth, your livelihood, your entire life to some frivolous lawsuit is very real. So in Belize, they've taken steps like you just mentioned to eliminate that risk. Now that doesn't mean you're not gonna be liable if you're blatantly committing a crime or at fault of something. But as an example, for all of my real estate holdings, my personal holdings, I hold them in IBCs or LLCs. Most of my clients do the same. It just makes sense to protect your personal wealth from your companies, from your real estate holdings.
Absolutely.
And so it applies not only to your banking, but also to any investments you make in the country.
Absolutely. Now, it doesn't mean, it's definitely big on secrecy, having discretion, having privacy, but it's not to be used as something to hide anything. That shouldn't be the mindset of anybody opening an ICB or holding an LLC. It should be all with the view of legality. Again, I'm not an attorney, but you're creating an ICB is for your protection, a separate entity from yourself, but should be used not for hiding anything. So if you are, to become attacked under scrutiny, you should be able to stand up to any sort of investigation.
Good. So I had a question come in from an attendee just now regarding the bank account. So his direct question is opening a non-resident bank account a requirement, or is it simply allowed?
No, it is a requirement in that I probably should know. Let me restate. As long as it's a account open with a Belize financial institution, so you can go and open a U.S. account as long as the source of funds is coming into the country. So it needs to come into a bank within the country of Belize.
Okay.
Doesn't matter which one you're open. The most common one though is the a non-resident bank account. And it makes sense. If you do have an LLC, if you do have an ICB, you would probably want to have an international bank account within the currency that you'd want, whether that's be US currency or euros, whatever currency you want. You might want to have a, a bank account for that portion. And separating everything, having a bank account for your QRP itself. Most common, most I recommend is having a non-resident bank account.
Okay, so that the $2,000 per month that would flow into the country of Belize, and that's what you would use then to spend on your, your travel, your expenses, electricity, things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. All right, good. That answers that question. Thank you.
The next point would be, the document. So if this is something that you are interested in, if this is something that you can see yourself working for you, then what would be the documents that you would need? There are a few documents you would definitely need. If we jump to we can probably, I skipped that slide. Sorry, guys. We can go back to that one if you want quickly, Dennis.
Yeah, there's a few important things here that I think we should highlight. For the layperson, some of these bullet points don't mean a lot, but just so they know that within the law code of Belize, these things have been thoroughly documented, proven. That this is what makes Belize attractive to people and investors. Those of you who've been following me for a while now know that some of the major hotel brands have coming down to the country. We have the Marriott, we have the Hilton, we have the Four Seasons, we have Margaritaville coming on board. And so the reason all of this foreign investment feels comfortable, not only themselves investing, but also attracting individual investors and retirees, is because of these laws and acts that the Belize government has put in place to attract and secure foreign investment. So unless you have anything in detail that you feel you want to bring out on these, Josie,
No, I just wanted to definitely point out that the government has, gone to great lengths to enact series of, legislative measures to make Belize an ideal location for retirement and offshore as a jurisdiction area. So again, it goes hand in hand. It's not either or. It can work. They work and are created to complement each other.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Thank you. So let's talk about the documents. So a couple of my clients here have been asking, they are over 45. They do have the 2,000 a month coming in. So now what do they need to get together to see if the BTB will accept them?
Okay, so if we jump to the next slide, there's a quick little list of some of the additional documents that you would need. First, you would need your application form. This is revised every year. There are one for the member and one for the dependents. So it's separate applications. You need a notarized birth certificate. This is for each applicant, for dependent and for the member. You would need, if you are going to include your spouse, you're going to need to provide a notarized marriage certificate. Now, I wanted to just pause right here and bring out a point. Now, you do not have to include your spouse under the QRP. One member alone within the family can apply by itself. Now, what does this allow you? Remember earlier I said, what if it was your dream to come down to open a dive shop, maybe a taco stand? Who knows? That was your dream, but maybe your spouse, let's say she wanted to come down and just retire. This allows you, one member, your wife can move forward and apply to be a QRP member and enjoy the status, and taking advantage of bringing in your household, having that vehicle come in tax free. But your spouse would then probably take a different direction and go for permanent residency or maybe citizenship, and still open, that little dream that he always has had. So it's pretty much having your cake and eating it. It's very flexible. It can work in different ways. I think that's awesome.
No, that is. It is really good.
Everybody wins. Everybody
Yeah.
wins in this scenario. You would also need to provide a police report from your last place of residence. This applies for absolutely everybody. So whether somebody's 5-year-old or 45, you would need a notarized copy of your passport, the complete passport. That means the blank pages should be included. So from the first page to the very last page, absolutely everything needs to be provided. Again, the proof of income showing that you have access to a minimum of $2,000. We review those and make sure it's presented in the best light so that it's understood by BTB. You would need to provide a medical examination plus an AIDS test. And then lastly, for front and for side pictures.
Okay.
With
So
that together, submit it to BTB.
no. It seems like a lot, but really a lot of those are very simple.
Yes.
I've had to present these in several countries that we've lived. The good thing about now is with everything being online, if you can't find your birth certificate or your marriage certificate in your paperwork, you can easily order copies of those online. Your color passport copies, notarized, that's pretty standard.
Mhm.
Now, regarding the medical examination and AIDS test, Steph and I were living on the island at the time we got that, so that was just a visit to the
Absolutely.
doctor's office. That's easy. As far as the police record, I've never had to do that in the States, but in Belize, we were living in Belize when we applied for our residency. That was a very easy thing to order. Is there anything in here that you found, because you've helped now dozens of people get their paperwork in order, is there anything in this list that is, I don't want to say problematic, but you just want to give them a heads up, like this could be a tip or trick on how to get this easier?
To acquire it, like I said, it's very easy within the U.S. It's very easy to get documentation and proof. Your police reports, medical, and so forth.
Okay.
The most important thing within this application is the finance. At the end of the day, the government is trying to bring in capital into the country. So this is the part of the application that they want to guarantee. They want to guarantee that these funds will come in. So we need to make sure that this portion is presented in the best light and shows that you do qualify. Even if you're not in that cookie cutter role of having a pension, having a social security, this is the most important part of, I say, within the applications process.
Okay, excellent. Very good. So where do we go from here? We have questions, but should we go to the Q&A?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me go through here, because thank you guys for your questions. You've been bringing out a lot of them. I think the first one that's most relevant to your presentation is there a benefit for both husband and wife to apply, or is just one good enough and the other comes in as a dependent?
There's no need for both husband and wife to apply separately. Absolutely none. The one person can apply and the other person come in as a dependent. The only benefit I would see is if one person came in, let's say this year, and they have 1 year to bring in their household good. 2 years down the line, if another spouse applies, then they would have the same advantage, a year to bring in their personal effects, to bring in a second vehicle, because they're two separate QRP members. That necessarily isn't, but again, that's if that was the direction they wanted to go. Let's say that one person was a member, and one decided that he wanted to do residency or work permit for a couple of years. But then until it came to an age of retiring, once they're at that point, they can apply as a dependent. They won't necessarily have to apply as a member. They can still join the member itself with the other spouse that holds the status, and join it as a dependent.
Okay, gotcha. No, that makes sense. Yeah, so I,
Okay.
but this is going back a good 10 years. I had a client come in with his wife. They owned a very nice sailboat. Estimated value is around 250,000 US. And I think it was the wife applied for QRP, got granted status, was able to bring the sailboat in tax free, and the husband was able to be free and clear to open a business. So it worked good that for both of them, both for the tax savings and for the one who wanted to own and operate a business. So it worked out very good.
Absolutely.
Under that same question, going back to the LLC Act, some of my clients own properties using a U.S. based LLC, like from Colorado or Delaware. When you talk about LLC, are you talking about a Belizean registered LLC or a U.S. LLC that's registered in Belize?
U.S. You can be either or.
Okay.
You can have open one in Belize, or you can have one from the U.S. that you already currently own.
Okay.
So either way you go, yes.
Excellent. And so as far as IBCs, I'm most familiar with Anguillan IBCs. I hold several and own properties in those. But have you found one international business company to be better than others recently?
I wouldn't be able to say on that one, to be
Okay.
honest,
Okay.
Dennis.
Yeah, I just know sometimes with the cost to form is one thing, but then sometimes they have various renewal cost. So that's that's a question that's going to come up here going into 2019. What type of IBC I would recommend, but we can get to that another time.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. A few more questions are coming in. Do you have any approximate cost on the, I mean, the LLCs are pretty standard, IBCs are pretty standard. Regarding those things, do you assist with that portion of it? Or are you mainly assisting with the QRP and the bank accounts?
Mainly assisting with the QRP and the banking accounts.
Okay.
It would be definitely recommended to go with a registered agent for if you wanted to do an IBC. I'm definitely would be happy to recommend somebody, get an attorney to help you and walk you through to see if it's the best fit, and so forth. But mainly I help you through the QRP program. This is where I have a lot of inside knowledge of how it operates and the best way to navigate your documents, and present it to BTB.
Okay, excellent. So I had a couple questions come in regarding the qualification process. So if it's a couple, it's $2,000 a month for the couple, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
good.
The entire family. So if
Yep.
it's a couple and 5 kids, is the requirement is just a minimum of 2,000 for that member itself.
Okay.
Does not goes up if there's dependents included.
Okay, excellent. And is there a cost for the QRP itself? Like, is there an application fee or a renewal fee? You said you had to kind of renew each year. What are those costs like?
So the beauty of it is very inexpensive to get into the program. The application fee of $150. It's one time non-refundable. Now, this is one of the beauty of it. At the moment, it is an application itself. So even though your application is submitted as a member, and then there's dependent application form, it is submitted together and it's just one application fee. Now, this may change, but for the time being, once it's submitted together, there's only one application fee that would apply. Not for all the, if it's 5 filled out, it's just a 150. Once you are within the program, there is $1,000 fee to get into the program. Then there is the $200 for the ID, your QRP ID. Now, the ID itself is done through the immigration department. It is really nice. They issue the IDs, and it will include your passport biometric information. So the benefit of that is that you go, when you arrive into the country, you go to the immigration line, the line for residence. So you no longer stand in line for the tourists. That long line in Belize, we know it's a tiny,
Yeah.
tiny airport. So you go straight into the line of the residents, you swipe your card, and you get to pass through. So it makes coming through in and out of Belize very quickly.
Excellent. Yeah, I haven't had to use that tourist line in many years.
It can be
So
very
just
smart.
to kind of go back to the cost. So these costs, if anybody has done any research on moving abroad and look at
Mhm.
obtaining residency in another country, these are ridiculously cheap numbers. We're talking
Absolutely.
$1,000 for the application. You got your
Mhm.
ID cost, your initial application fees, but these are just extremely low requirements to get in. And
Extreme.
once you have that, you are actually bona fide residents, in a sense, tourist
Mhm.
residents of another country,
Mhm.
with all those tax benefits. So when I went to get my um, permanent residence, first of all the work permit, and then my permanent residence card, and so forth. And even living here in Paris, we have a permanent annual or visa card that we hold. I've always assisted. I've always got the help of people who could walk the process through. And I know this is especially important in Belize, because filling out the paperwork is one thing, but tracking it down and seeing whose desk it's on and what has to be done to move it forward. Just going back to one thing you said, Josie, at the beginning, is the BTB is a very, very small office with
Mhm.
not that many workers. So if they get your file and some paperwork isn't quite up to snuff, or they don't recognize something, or something is confusing, it's human nature on their part to set that paperwork aside. And then it's kind of like good luck getting back to it. um, it's not they're not being rude. It's just that they have other things to do that they can move on. So regarding
Yes.
yourself, Josie, how do have you assisted people to get the QRP? What is your role in all of this?
Absolutely. So it's exactly what you said, Dennis. It's a small office space. These are employees, again, that handle multiple departments. They're not only looking applications for the QRP, but they're also looking at applications for people that want to open a hotel or vacation rentals, for people that want to operate a tour company. So all these different applications, enter these departments and goes into the same desk. Now, if they don't understand something, again, these are not financial advisors, these aren't accountants. What tends to happen is your file is then placed on the table for a later day. Easier ones to interpret, gets processed and moves along. What happens is your application might get forgotten, your documentation might expire, and that procedure starts all over again. You have to resubmit your documentation. Now, one of the biggest, advantages of moving in Belize, but can be a disadvantage, is things move slowly in Belize. So patience is a virtue, and you'd have to be really virtuous to adapt to Belizean culture in the speed in which the country operates. In the U.S. or other countries, it is common for things or application to be done paperless.
Hmm.
Belize is not there yet.
Right.
We are not a paperless country, so
Right.
everything needs to be in black and white. I tell all my clients, hold on to original documents. Don't scan it and put it, hold on to that physical copy. So they need to see everything in their face, black and white, ink on paper, to be considered original. For them to process. Now, there's advantage to that. And then, of course, there's a few, maybe inconveniences because you're not accustomed. You have to go forward and request these documentation. But having it done this way, that it's not paperless, it is a human person um, looking at your application itself. They look at you as a person, they look at your circumstances, they look at how best to bring you into the program. So you're not disqualified or you're not put aside if you don't exactly meet the cookie cutter mold that the act was created under. So that's definitely where I assist. People are scared, well, I don't exactly fit all the requirements I read online. Well, we can navigate and we can see how you qualify, and it may not be something for you. This may not work out for you. You may need to go a different avenue, but if it does, we can definitely get you in. And that's where I come in. Once I receive all the documents, and we have a couple of conversations for clarification, I present these information to BTB. You don't have any interaction with the several government departments or personnel that you'd have to interact with. Everything is then on me. So this is a process that, yeah, absolutely you can do on your own. Belize has made it very, very simple for people to come in, very attractive to become a resident of the country. So it's something you can do, absolutely. Definitely can say it's absolutely something you do not want to do on your own. For anybody that's been in Belize, been in any local or government department, they're always tiny. You have to know exactly what to do, where to go. You have to, this applies in buying groceries. You go to one store for your milk, you go to another store for your eggs or your breads or your meats or your cheese. So it's the same way with the, acquiring your resident status. It has different players involved, and I know exactly which players that you'd have to go, which departments and so forth, and make this transition very, very, very smoothly.
Excellent. And so how many people would you estimate that you have walked through and gotten their paperwork complete for them?
So within the last year, so last year itself, I brought in seven applications smoothly in. Every single application is different from the other. Not one applicant from last year was the exact same as the other. So everybody had a different form of income. Everybody had a different purpose, and so forth. And before that, before working with the real estate office, I can pretty much sum up to having helped, up to maybe 30 or so coming into the program itself. So I've helped a lot of people come into the BTB from the early stages to as recent as last year.
Good. And so what are your fees? The big question.
The big question.
You do make a living off of this. This webinar is free. Information is free, but you do got two teenage girls in the house, and they do eat. So
yes, exactly. Glasses and braces, right? The application process itself, my fees starts off at $1,000. Now this includes all dependents. So whether it's 1 or 5 or 6 dependents on the application, it does not matter. I help, getting the QRP set up. If you need assistance with the banking, we can definitely add that on. If you need assistance getting your golf cart and so forth, definitely assist with that as well. This includes getting once you're set up, getting your IDs, getting your importation letters, that you will need for getting your custom broker. Now, you will need a custom broker when you start bringing in your vehicles and your personal effects. That will work. You would need to acquire a customs broker, and then that custom broker will work hand in hand with the immigrations to clear yourself duty-free. But all that paperwork that's required, I would definitely make sure that all the documentation is gathered and goes to the right person.
Okay, so can they start to apply? For example, I had a question coming here. I have a couple from the U.S. who want to move forward on this. Can they start to move forward from the U.S. or do they come down to Belize? How does that work?
Don't need to be in the country whatsoever. So you can be in the U.S. The entire thing can be done without even stepping foot into the country. You can start the process, be approved, and have your stuff shipped down before you even step into the country. The first thing I do is once I walk you through gathering your documents, once you gather all your documents, I request that everything is scanned, is sent my way. I review all the documentation. If there's anything I would recommend you add, I would, walk you through that. Any clarification, we definitely sit you if you need to change documents. I would walk you through before you actually mail the bunch of documents to me.
Excellent.
So once I approve it, you mail it. Once I receive it, then the application process begins.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Well, hey, there's more questions coming in, but we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. What I would like to do is just sort of wrap up with just another question or two before we give your contact information and see what people want to do. But I'm just going to launch a quick poll just for your benefit, Josie, and mine, to see what effect this webinar had on people today. So I just put up a poll on your screen based on what you've seen today. It says, how likely are you to invest in Belize, but replace that word invest with retire or look at the QRP program. This is an old poll I had from another webinar. So if this program is something that you think you might qualify for, check the first box, and then of course email us. If you think you might qualify but you're not quite there yet, maybe you're younger or don't quite have the funds, you need a little bit more time, click that. Maybe we can email you and talk to you about some ideas on how you could qualify. If you need to do more research, I'm going to give you Josie's email here in a bit. You can set up a one-on-one consultation with her. And if you didn't like what you heard today, which is possible for some, then maybe Belize isn't for you after all, and maybe we can recommend another country that's more to your liking. So please go ahead and vote. I'll close the poll out here another 5 or 6 seconds. Most of you have voted. I'll share with you actually. And this actually is very encouraging, because so far 0% of you said maybe Belize isn't for you after all, which is nice. So I'm going to close the poll, share the results. This is always fun for the attendees. So 90%, Josie, said they will be very likely interested in this program and will be emailing you. 50% need more time. So that 50%, I'm assuming they just have some questions, or maybe they just don't feel they qualify. They could be underage or underfunded. That's okay, because you know what? You might be now, but in 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you might be able to qualify. And then the 31% of you that needs to do more research, of course, I'll give you my information. So a couple questions that came in, Josie, that maybe we can put some information together. Several people said that when you were saying about the cost involved, like there was an initial fee and then something else and then an annual renewal. Could you just make up a one-page PDF showing all those fees so they can get it as a glance, maybe a one-page PDF on the paperwork involved, and then put your fee structure on that, and how you're paid and how you do your business. Also, Josie works directly with the Belize Tourism Board, as you mentioned, but she also in the past and continues to work with several of the most prominent real estate companies in San Pedro and on the mainland. So she's not tied to one particular company, but companies that do several millions of dollars a month in business on Ambergris Caye. She works with her clients, so she's very, very trustworthy. Known Josie for a long time, so nice to finally get you on the webinar today. Before we sign off and let everybody go on with their day, is there any closing words you have for us? Anything that you want the people to know about, or where they can find you, or what their next step should be?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things I'd have to say is just I hope this was helpful in just understanding the QRP and the status itself. Many times I've heard if anything negative on the way the QRP is because people did not fully understand what the status was. And what their goals were. So they came under the QRP, but then realized, maybe they wanted to operate a vacation rental and it didn't work hand in hand. So understanding what exactly the QRP is and the goals that you want to accomplish, that is covered in our, the consultation to see if it actually is for you, can work for you, and so forth. So you're not going in blindly. That I guess is the biggest thing that I'd like people hope I helped people today is understanding the benefits. There's nothing, Belize is not trying to gain. They're trying to bring as much and as trying to make it as friendly and trying to make it as welcome as possible and easy as possible for people to retire and still invest in the country.
Excellent. Very good. So regarding investing, of course, you can email me if you're interested in real estate. And I confirmed this with Josie before the webinar, is that you absolutely do not need to own property in Belize to qualify for this. So it does help, along with many things. Owning even a small piece of land does help with the process. It shows your seriousness. It shows that you're invested in the country, but it's not necessary. But if you have any questions regarding that, email me. My email address, of course, you have it through the webinar registration page, but also here. To email Josie, you email Josie, spelled Josey, at qrpinbelize.com. Very good. So you can expect a boatload of emails coming in.
No, absolutely. I know there's definitely more questions that people would have in mind, and I'd be happy to answer them more directly and more in depth for them and get their answers that they need.
So one more thing before everyone goes. I don't know if you heard the big announcement. There's a property on the north side of Ambergris Caye that was recently purchased by a group of investors. It was the old Sueño del Mar property. This is going to be finished and reopened and branded as a Margaritaville. So a Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. So what I'm going to do is next Wednesday evening, I'm putting together a live presentation giving you a bunch of insider information on that project. Many of you who are attending the webinar today actually own property up around those areas, the Punta Azul subdivision, the Robles, Rocky Point, places like that, even down around Habaneros. So this is going to certainly be a big game changer for that part of the island. So after this webinar, I will compile all of you who registered, send you out invites to next Wednesday's live event, and I hope to see you there. In the meantime, thanks a lot, Josie. This has been a lot of fun, and
thank you.
Hopefully, my clients and you can do some business together. I think this is a really good program, and thank everybody for attending today. Again, email us if you have any questions, and we'll do our best to get you some answers and get you living the dream down in Belize very soon. All right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Take care, guys. Cheers.